Sashi, now I'm going to take you into this segment too, and this is exclusively designed for you. And as and when we spoke, you spoke about your list of research that you have done, and not necessarily be in a big volume, but also could also be mini projects. We have done on a lot of aspects. I picked up four topics in it. The first thing, which is very close to me, your research on dyslexia, and not necessarily be, as I said, a big volume. It could also be a pet project. And what was your take on it? And how you have been informed about it to bring in a sort of change in education pattern. So, would you like to talk about it?
Right. Actually, this research on dyslexia, it was my part of my PhD thesis.
Okay,
I did my PhD in education, and I
okay,
did in psycholinguistics,
okay,
especially psychology of learning language. So my focus fell on dyslexia for a reason. There was an incident, I was working in a school long back. It was in the late 80s, right? And there was a girl in the primary section. I was going for the high classes, and the teachers used to have her answer scripts in their hands and make fun, right? And I used to get really worked up. They say this child is very intelligent, but deliberately she's doing this. Those kind of accusations. I said, fourth standard kid cannot do that. Cannot deliberately do that. There is something wrong with the child. See, those days we were not that knowledgeable about learning difficulties and all that. No, because we didn't have net, we didn't have anything, any source. Only if you take some interest and go and search in the library, you will get some information about any particular topic. For that, you need to know that such topics existed.
exactly.
Right, that was a problem. But I had some vague memory of reading about learning difficulties. I didn't know exactly what it was because I was a layperson. As it was, I was a layperson. So I said, no, no, this child needs help. Please don't do that. I used to tell my colleagues. Then once I met her mother, and then I casually suggested, see, those days, even you cannot suggest something. Immediately they say, there's something wrong with my child.
It's again in 1970s and 80s, right?
Yeah, early 90s or late 80s.
Okay,
So I slowly broached this topic and then I said, your child is a very chirpy kind of a girl and all that, but please take her to some place. Get her some counseling. Immediately she flared up as expected and then later on, after some time, she said, yeah, we also thought about it. Maybe you have a point. We'll think about it. Anyway, thank you, she said. And then I had to move out of that place and then we came to Coimbatore. And then this was over, and then when I was around, you know, 2006 or 7, you know, in a shopping mall, there was a young lady,
after
and then
30 years, kind of it.
after 30 years, nearly 30 years, young lady, and then her mother was there. I think it was a mother. And then they were pointing at me and they were talking something to themselves. And I didn't know them. And then slowly they approached me and then they asked, they didn't know my name. Then, did you work in such and such school in this place? Yes. I said, yes. I couldn't place her. I casually asked, were you my student? Then she said, no, I'm Mahalakshmi. I'm now Dr. Mahalakshmi. All because of you. I said, I don't remember having a Mahalakshmi in my class. So I said,
Okay.
I must be mistaken. No, I don't remember teaching any girl called Mahalakshmi. Then she said, do you remember you just gave a suggestion to my mother? And I was then, people diagnosed me as dyslexic. I went to a counselor. Then I just, whatever has to be done, it was done. Now I'm a doctor. I'm practicing in Coimbatore. I'm going to get married. All that she said. Then only then, I realized the enormity of the suggestion I had made. It was just an offhand and then casual suggestion. Why don't you take her to your counselor? I said, right? then I felt there are so many Mahalakshmis who need this kind of help and suggestions, and a little further also, some kind of solution. Right? Then I started going deep into my into the study of dyslexia, and then I learned about it. And then till then I had no interest, so superficially I knew what it was. That's all. I didn't go deep into it. Then I went through this principles of psycholinguistics and all that, and then I decided to go for my second PhD. I already had one PhD in English, so I wanted to enroll for my second PhD because I was the principal of Wade College. So I thought I should, when you enter a field, you should be fully qualified. That is my principle. That's why I keep acquiring degrees one after the other. So I thought I should enroll for a PhD in education. Then immediately I chose this. So dyslexia, psycholinguistics, and that was the thing. So what I did was, see, after my studies, after the preliminary research work which I had done, I knew, I understood that it has nothing to do with intelligence or any capacity or skills. In fact, these dyslexic children or even children with any other learning difficulties, they tend to be more intelligent, and they have their own potentials in so many other fields. It's a matter of wiring problem, you know. That's what it is. That's how I call it. Instead of going to one part of the brain, the uh, people when the people uh, read, you know, the sensation gets transferred to some other part. So the interpretations, there's some kind of a confusion. So they get all these three-dimensional images, and then let us start dancing. That is it. That's as simple as possible. So the basic thing is, if a child cannot learn the way you teach, you need to teach the way they can learn. That is the basic principle. Right? So I wondered how I can apply that principle to this particular category of children. And it's always better to catch them young. So in search of a sample group at the primary level, I had to really struggle. I went to every school, every type of school, and then I had to first educate the teachers, and then I had to help them to identify. And then they were telling, no, this child has got dyslexia. That child. And, see, whoever is not able to read or write, it is their fault. They are not taught properly. Immediately they brand them as no, children with learning difficulty or slow learners. There's nothing called slow learner. Everybody is a learner. It's the pace that differs. So why brand a child as a slow learner and then, you know, always say you cannot, you cannot? It's very wrong. That actually works on the psyche of the child, and then the child really believes whatever the teacher says, and then loses interest in learning. That's what happens in our schools. So I sat with them, I helped them to identify, gave them some tests, and then I told them how to identify. And then I got them confirmed from some experts, and then only I launched into this project. Then I
Okay.
devised kind of a software, like, you know, where things will be very easy. For example, I was only teaching them sounds, and then the symbols associated with the sound. So, if I want to teach them the letter S, I show them the picture of a snake coiling like this. It assumes the shape of an S, and then the outline becomes the S. And the whole time the snake will be hissing like this. So they remember the sound, they remember the snake, and they remember the symbol, and then they learn the letter S. So I did this with only about 10 sounds, and it was a big success. Right? And I conducted the sessions regularly. I went to every school, about 5, 6 schools, and then there was one special school. So we had different groups. So every day I used to go to these schools and then give them some training, and then after giving them the instruction, conduct a test, a pre-test, post-test, everything conducted. And then I was able to find that it was a real success. This method was really successful. And for example, you know, one child, the mother said they were taking a walk from school. and then there were trees. So this child pointed out to a tree where there was a fork like this, two
Mm.
branches like this. Then she said, "That's bee." The child said, "It is bee." So that was the proof, right? That my project was a success. The mother was so happy, and then she met me, and then she said, You came to the school for about a month, and then you gave them all the instructions. This child, she's able to remember, recognize even the shape of the letter B." So, reading those, whatever I taught, that was very easy for the kids. Then, they followed that method, and then somehow they were able to, how people get adjusted to the type of learning. So I showed them the way. This is how you learn. So if you want to learn a letter, associate it with the thing, with the sound. So they were able to do that and slowly overcome most of them. That's what the reports say. Later on, no, when I contacted the schools, they said the reading has improved. That was a big success. And I was very happy. At least I could touch the life of a few children.
Like most of the people may not be knowing. At least now there is was awareness, especially after the movie Tare Zameen Par and so. But even in my times, which is year in 1995 2000, I had dyslexia as well. I couldn't recognize the letters and sounds until my class 6 7. But somehow I got my aunt. I'm a great grandmother kind of it. Um, she was retired principal by then. She taught me the sound and the letter in my class 7 annual exam. The summer holidays. But somehow I picked up later on. You see, until class 7th, I was not able to just recognize, especially in Tamil, Hindi, whatsoever. I don't know what is it basically, but I used to paint everywhere.
Yeah,
I was so good with painting. I
yeah,
only
that's
just
very creative.
recognize things.
Visualize, and then you could have experienced that. You can
Exactly.
visualize.
Till now, I do that. I'm in Netherlands now in my office. When we speak in Dutch as well. Now I speak Dutch. It will be like when they explain some concepts, business concepts, I couldn't follow. I just, hey, show what exactly you're talking. So, so now they have an idea. Okay, when they show something like website or a flow chart or something, I get it instantly. But if you're gonna tell everything text, blah, 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 it's very tough for me. But I just put everything. I have this kind of photo memory. I need to visualize, see things
Yeah,
as a
that's
pictorial
your
form,
way
then
of learning.
execute it. Yeah,
That's your way of learning. If a teacher fails to recognize that, it is not your fault, right? That's why I said if a child cannot learn the way you teach, you have to teach them the way they can learn. That's it. You have to change the teaching methodology. That's why we have the special schools. Nowadays, people have got that awareness. But I
yeah.
feel that the academic side, the regular universities, they're not paying much attention to research in this area. Like even my interest was sort of dampened because of the attitude of people. Oh, why do you want to research in this area? You won't get any resources. You will have this difficulty, that difficulty. People won't understand. Actually, the examiner did not understand the value of my research. I'm very sorry to say that. She didn't ask even one question pertaining to my research. Only the statistical analysis she was harping on that. And why did you do this test? Why didn't you do this non-parametric test? Those kind of questions were there in the Viva. Can you imagine
Oh
that?
my
I had
God.
taken pains, and then I had done so much. She didn't, because she didn't know anything about it, probably, she didn't want to touch my research work. Very pathetic it was. Luckily, there were one or two research scholars who had come for the waiver. They were also doing their research in this area. So they asked certain pointed questions pertaining to my research, and that saved my day. But still, that examiner was not happy at all. because she didn't understand. That is how it is. You sometimes feel, what is the point in doing all that, right? See, if only, I had got some kind of encouragement, I could have taken this further. I could have developed the entire software. I could have done a lot of things. I could have even become an expert in that and then an advisor, or I could even cater to the needs of this kind of children, dyslexic people. I could have done a lot of things. But my interest, it was totally doused. What's the point? I take so much of pain, so many places I walk. In hot sun, I used to take my laptop and go from school to school. During the when I was giving them the thing, administering the test and all that. But no, the attitude of people around, they think they know just because they sit in higher places, they are above. They think they are above you. See, the extent of knowledge that doesn't matter at all. This academic work, everything goes by the name and then the show, everything. So that, but still, after reading my research work, I was told that many people wanted to concentrate on this particular area.
What is your end conclusion for the public on this very topic, or your if you like to just convey something through this platform, what you would you like to just do that?
No, see, like I said, again, I don't mind repeating. If a child is not able to learn the way you teach, please try to teach the child the way he or she can learn. That should be the policy. You cannot
Yeah.
treat everybody the same. You know, the learning capacity, it keeps changing. And, no comparison. When you start comparing one child with another child, you are actually ruining the life of the child. You find out what is good in that child and try to encourage the child through that. And then when the child is encouraged, motivated, it's like, knowing about the other things, shows interest in learning new concepts, exploring things. And then that's how you slowly induct the child into the realm of education. And like mad people chase after marks. It's nothing.
There should be
Marks,
a diversity, equity, and inclusion every aspect of life.
yes, actually the education is an overall development. It is not
Yes,
just scoring marks. As a person, you have to evolve. Your knowledge has to evolve,
true.
right? And then you need to explore, and then through the exploration, you have to experience and then get first-hand information. And that's how you learn.
True.
Creativity is totally lost in the modern times. By the time a child comes out of this primary level, the creativity is totally killed, murdered, butchered. If you're creative, you cannot shine, you cannot score marks. That's the thing.
True. It's a very hard topic. I could also feel the hardness. But what best we can do is, as you said, just try to just at least observe, and if not able to help, at least observe there is some differences. How could you bring in inclusivity in your way of teaching? That's something we can just look on as immediate parameter. Thank you so much, Sashi. And now I'm taking you to the next research topic. You have, it's not a research, probably you made a study, I think so. You did a mini study on this. The concentric circle of model to develop the healthy boundaries. You are talking about this model that you developed. So,
No, actually,
yeah,
this was my father's idea. It was his
okay,
concept.
okay,
And then when I understood, a lot of things became very clear. No,
okay.
see, you always start at the innermost circle and you stay in your own circle. So initially, you are there with your parents and your siblings, innermost circle. Then the next circle You have your grandparents, uncles, aunts, other close relatives, and then the next circle, other relatives, then friends. So, so when you see, you can have all the relationship in various circles, concentric circles, and you are always in the innermost. And when you grow older, you push your siblings out, you push your parents out, and there is a new addition inside. You have your family, your children, and that's your innermost circle. And the people who have been in your innermost circle, they are not there. They are in the next circle or in the uh, very next circle. So they keep getting pushed. Same way, you also keep getting pushed out of other people's inner circle. For example, your sister, your brother, you move over to their next circle. You are no more in their inner circle. So this is what happens. So you know how much of liberty you can take with people who are your own. As a family, your parents and then children, the closeness, and then the type of relationship they have, the interactions they have, that is different. At the same time, when you interact with people in the next circle, there's a variation. Same way when you move with your friends or your relatives, the interactive patterns keep changing. So if you understand that, you can adopt the right kind of interactive pattern when you interact with anybody. For that, you should know in which circle they are.
I get it. I have. I get it. Actually, I don't call it with this term, but I have my solar. I call it as solar system. Well, I am the sun. I call it as I have only 9 wings: Mercury, Venus, Venus. So if I find a person in my Mercury ring, okay, he is in a Mercury, he or she is in Mercury, then I'll be extremely emotional, whatsoever. If a planet is in Jupiter or Saturn and Uranus, I knew what level of emotional response I should give. If someone in Pluto, all I can do is hi, bye, how are you? Not even how are you, goodbye, good morning. So kind of it. It's actually gives a lot of clarity in how we can just approach in day in day out. A sort of extension of emotional intelligence as well, right? What do you
Yeah,
think about it?
that's it. Exactly. See, you cannot treat your son and the neighbor's son the same way, right?
Practically, yes.
Can't take the same kind of liberty. You can't. You can at times, you can talk anything. You can scold. You can uh, use even strong words, but you can't do that to the other person. So that's how you. This is also a type of emotional intelligence. Also, that's what I feel. You know how to what extent you can go closer, the extent of closeness, and then the pattern of interaction. All this you can decide depending on your knowledge of the circle they are in.
Very nice. Thank you, Sashi. And now I take you to your third research or study, which is on in your you have different personality, different expertise, and because as you said, you are a non-stop explorer. In a certain part, you had been a teacher, English literature as well, and you devised a couple of small models within your school arena on two topics. One is especially on teaching method, which you famously call it as reverse engineering and creative mode of teaching. So this had been your pioneer, and which you are so proud of. So would you like to talk about what it is with some examples, so that anyone, not necessarily a teaching fraternity, anyone who loves to teach others can adopt it?
I'll go with a simple example of teaching English grammar.
Okay.
Like you start with parts of speech. You teach them nouns, verbs. So they learn nouns. Okay, nouns. Then verbs, adjectives, conjunctions, interjections, adverbs. So one by one you teach them. So it's all there. Like separate entities. And the children wonder, what are we going to do with this? And then you tell them, okay, now you use all these in a sentence and make sentences. You start talking in English. They're really perplexed because that is our culture, our system of teaching. On the other hand, you give them the whole. What I normally do is give them a huge sentence, big sentence, and then I tell them to take one word at a time. I don't give any tag to the words. Just tell. So suppose it is uh, Surya. I ask them what is Surya, and they'll say name of a person. Okay, and then I say box. What is that? It's name of a thing. And then Calcutta, name of a place. Right? Jump. So all these words I pick from the sentence. I ask them what they are. They identify. Then I make a box, like, name of things, person, everything, and then name of actions, and then what is beautiful. They say it says something about the quality or describing something. So I put it in a separate box. So like that, I keep putting things. Then I give the tag. So the naming words are called nouns. Then those words which indicate action, they are called verbs. And then like that, I give them the tags. And then those words which describe the nouns are called as adjectives. Those words which tell how the action was done, they are called adverbs. And then those connecting words are, they are conjunctions. And whenever you can use something else in the place of a noun, they are pronouns. So different boxes I put, and then once they are able to group words, put them in the respective boxes, then I give them the tag. Now they know the function of the words, they know the name of those special names given to each type of words. Now they have learned figures of speech. Right? Then I just give them some words, random words. Okay, you can jumble. You can make as many sentences as you can using these words. And they're able to do it. Then I tell them, okay, now you tell me what is what, which is the noun. So in about 2 or 3 periods, everything is done. They are aware of the fact that the language is, the entire sentence is split into different words, and each word has got its own characteristic. Some are there for, they are with the information. For example, nouns, verbs, they carry the information. The others are required for getting the structure. So you have the content words and the functional words. That's it. So this is how I go. And later, not a later stage, suppose you want to teach them a concept. You give them the entire, you present the entire thing to them. Give them a write-up. Make them read. Or if it is a lesson, make them read the lesson. And make them frame questions. Maybe one paragraph at a time. Make them frame questions. It's like mind mapping. Nowadays, I think primary schools, they teach mind mapping.
Wow.
Ask the questions. So read. For every sentence, you can ask as many questions as you can. So one by one, you read all the sentences. And then frame all the questions, possible questions. And then find those answers from the passage given. Now you have the concept and you have understood the concept. You don't have to teach.
Very nicely put. The very basic skill is questioning. I think
Yes.
the skill of questioning was not much
Yes.
encouraged.
Yes.
It's all about following. It's not about questioning.
It's like, even see, sometimes when a teacher teaches, these kids will have very genuine questions, but they're scared to ask because the teacher, sometimes because the teacher may not have an answer. Shh, don't disturb. Sit down. That will be the reaction. Invariably, 90% of the teachers do that. They don't encourage questioning because What if the kids ask something and they're not able to answer? No, there's nothing wrong. Even I have when somebody asks a question, very tough question. If I do not know the answer, first I have to admit. I used to tell my students, just wait till tomorrow and find the answer and backtrack. I'm not very sure now. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You can't know everything. Just because you're a teacher, just because you got two PhDs, I don't have to know everything. Because the question asked, I might not have come across such a thing, right? Or it may not be pertaining to my field, but it will be a very genuine question. So there's nothing wrong in admitting your ignorance. That requires a lot of confidence. Because I may not know this, I may know a lot of other things. That's the case with everybody. And nobody is going to think low of you just because you do not know something. Right? What will the students think? If you give a wrong answer or if you put them down, only then they'll say something bad about it. The teacher doesn't know anything. The teacher has given a wrong answer, or just because the teacher doesn't know, she is silencing us. That will be the reaction. When you say, when you tell them the truth, when you admit the truth that you do not know, right now I don't have the information you are seeking. Let me find out. You also search. Tomorrow we'll have a discussion. That's the healthy way of going about it. Children also will have an interest in that. They'll also do some research. They'll also try to find out the answer. And sometimes even before you can come to a conclusion, they come out with the answer. Yesterday I asked, this is the answer. Come out with that. What is you are a teacher, you have to teach. You don't have to bother about the type of impression you're going to create and all that. Or get it across. That's it.
So we used it with jargons like reverse engineering or creative mode of teaching, but everything's zeroed in on to a basic thing, which is first of all admitting that everyone it's not necessary that everyone knew everything. We are not Google. To admit the fact, we
Yes.
knew a speck of information. That's it. If we don't know, just still don't know, we'll get to it. That's a very basic thing, followed by questioning. Whatever the model you are talking is all about questioning self. What is it? Thinking and questioning.
The most important thing is, you have to keep the curiosity alive.
Exactly.
Don't kill the curiosity. Child is asking because the child is curious to know.
Yeah.
You cannot kill the curiosity of the child. See, what happened was once I had a storytelling session for in, sixth or seventh standard. Normally, we used to make stories. I'll just go blank. I'll start a story and then tell. That's how storytelling sessions are like we create. So instead of creating a new story that day, after starting the session, I thought, why not we start from something we know already? So I asked them, do you all know Cinderella story? They all have seen the movie or they know the story. Yes. Then I asked them, okay, now you are going to write the same story in a different way. What if Cinderella has not lost her shoes? If she had not lost her shoes, now that continue from that. The prince has no clue about who she is. Now, how is he going to find her? I had a variety of stories. One child even wrote, he found her on the Facebook. Sweet. All sorts of things. Can't imagine. Children are very creative. You have to keep that creativity and curiosity alive. That's what matters. Otherwise, it becomes rote learning. Whatever is there in the book, I have to get it. I have to learn by heart. And then questions will be asked from that. I have to answer. And that's how I complete my education. What is the point? You're
So
not
now it's
educated.
not even education, right?
You're not evolved at all. You're only reproducing something which is already there in the book. What have you learned and what has that education done to you? Nothing. You're the same person.
True. So your mode of The creative mode of teaching involves 5 parameters. Keep the first thing, keep the curiosity, not only the kid, of anybody alive. Anybody who likes to learn always should have their curiosity alive, followed with the basic admission that everyone need not know everything. It's okay to not know, just learn about it. That's the thing. There's no ego clash. And third, just think, come up with creative ideas and course thinking and creative ideas. Fourth is about questioning. And fifth, it is all about sharing. What you know, you just share. What they know, just share. It's all about brainstorming. That's where actual creativity happens in physical reality. So these are the 5 steps. Am I right?
Exactly. Absolutely. You're right, on the dot.
Transforming minds and enriching lives.